right, guys, so let's talk about staff management, starting with compliance, hiring staff, performance management, building culture, bosses versus leaders, and fringe benefits and perks. So there's a lot to cover in staff management. Really, you could run a whole course or subject just strictly on staff management alone. I think those who have staff members can completely agree with that. But yes, this is designed to cover off the key essential things that we need to know with regards to where to start when it comes to employing new staff members. And if you've already got staff members, where to start in terms of getting some of the fundamentals right. So let's kick that off and make sure that you've got the basics covered first. So the compliance is really important. We want to make sure that Mr. ATO isn't knocking on your door because you're not paying your staff members appropriately. So compliance, ensure you have taken care of the basics. So you've got to register for pay-as-you-go withholding. So that's either monthly or quarterly. So what does that even mean for those who don't have staff members, or for those who do have staff members but still don't know what that means? Basically, it's the tax that your staff members pay. So as an employer, you're almost like a little mini tax collection agency where you withhold the tax from your employees, and then you forward that on to the ATO. So depending on the size of your organization, you might do that either monthly or quarterly. Some of the really big organizations do it daily or weekly. So that is your pay-as-you-go withholding. Now, when it comes to single touch payroll, it's really important, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Now the ATO have real-time viewing of what your wages are. So you need to ensure that when you do process your wages, that the pay-as-you-go paid and declared is correct, because the ATO does do some data matching now, and they can track and make sure that that's correct or incorrect. The next one there is payroll tax. For most small businesses, this is something that you don't need to worry about, because generally your wages needs to be more than $1.1 million for the full year. So for most small businesses, this isn't applicable. But for those who do have wages of more than 1.1 million, this is something that you'll need to consider, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail in just a moment. Work cover, that's another basic that you need to ensure that you've got set up. Even if you've got one staff member, you need to ensure that you're registered for work cover. Work cover is compulsory, it's not optional, and effectively it covers your employees should they injure themselves or in the workplace, so workplace injury, and sometimes that even includes traveling to and from work. Now, how much is work cover, you ask? Well, that really just depends on the industry that you're in and also your claims history. So if you're in the construction industry, for example, and it is obviously known for being a little bit more dangerous than sitting in an office, then chances are those premiums are going to be higher. It also is increased if you've had a number of claims in the past. So if you've had 3 claims per year, then they're going to bump your premiums up because you're a high risk to work cover. So that's something to think about. This can be quite complex in terms of the calculations, in terms of what to include in declaring your wages, because it's not just your wage expense, it's also your superannuation and some other allowances as well. But you might be able to deduct things such as your directors can't be covered for work cover, and then apprentices as well. So there is some complexities there, and it does pay to consult with a payroll professional when getting these things in order, because you can be audited for work cover. So if you don't get them correct, there are penalties associated with having to back pay the work cover if miscalculated. The next one there is SuperStream. So gone are the days where we write up a check and flick it over to the relevant super funds once a quarter. Now SuperStream requires us to declare electronically how much our superannuation is for our employees. And that electronic communication helps to streamline the allocation of that super to the employee's super fund. So it really is a great thing. Sometimes people find it a bit painful because there is a bit more involved now in terms of compliance, but ultimately it's designed to help the employees ensure that they get their super quicker, because there was big issues with super going missing previously. So as an employee, you would pay it to the super fund, but then if you didn't provide the relevant remittance advice, they didn't know where to allocate it. So that's what SuperStream is. So you need to make sure that if you are paying super for your employees, that you need to be using a SuperStream compliance software. So the likes of your Xero and your QuickBooks have this SuperStream functionality available, but you can also, if you're a small business and not utilizing those softwares, you can also use the Australian SuperStream option as well. Again, it pays to use a payroll professional. If you feel confident enough to do it yourself, that's okay. But there are so many changes, and the changes are happening so frequently that we highly recommend that you consult with a payroll professional. So at Hannons, we certainly have our payroll specialists, and our main specialist is forever ensuring that she's keeping updated with all the changes with regards to payroll. The last one there, I mentioned it briefly before, was single touch payroll. So single touch payroll was introduced in the last 18 months. So from the 1st of July 2019 for smaller businesses, and prior to that for businesses with more than 20 employees. So single touch payroll simply means that when you process your wages, you need to be using a compliance software. So gone are the days again of handwriting your pay slip and manually calculating the tax withheld using your tax tables. Now you need to ensure that you're using compliance software, and then once you process your wages, you hit the button and it sends that information to the ATO. So they're knowing in almost real time what your obligations are. So again, this is designed because a lot of small businesses weren't paying the correct amount of tax withheld for their employees. They weren't paying the correct amount of super. So I guess it's a bit of a big brother now watching over what employers are doing. Some people are a bit annoyed by this, but at the end of the day, if you've got employees, you do have obligations to ensure that you are paying the super and tax on time. And unfortunately, historically, because of poor cash flow, some businesses were sometimes using their employees' super and tax withheld within cash flow within their business. If you're doing the Fasttrack course, and hopefully this definitely isn't you and this isn't a problem, and so that won't apply to you anyway, so you'd be happy to embrace single touch payroll.